Welcome to the channel CoinWorth Lab, and today we are diving into something that is going to make you sprint to your coin jar the second this video ends, because what I'm about to tell you involves a coin that most people use to tip a vending machine, a coin so ordinary looking that cashiers handle dozens of them every single shift without a second glance, and yet one specific version of this coin, a 1990p Washington quarter, has collectors and auction houses in an absolute frenzy, and I need you to stay right here because the story behind this coin is unlike anything you've heard before. Can you imagine reaching into your pocket right now and pulling out something worth more than a luxury penthouse? That's exactly the territory we're entering today. Now let me hit you with the number that changes everything, because this coin has sold for as much as $115 million. And yes, you read that correctly, $115 million for what appears to be a standard Washington quarter from 1990. And the moment you understand why, you will never look at pocket change the same way again. Let's set the stage here, because 1990 was a fascinating year at the Philadelphia Mint. A year where production volumes were enormous, where millions upon millions of quarters rolled off the presses and flooded into circulation across the country, and that sheer volume is actually part of what makes this story so dramatic, because when you produce coins by the hundreds of millions, you create the perfect conditions for something extraordinary to slip through undetected. A tiny mistake. Spectacular anomaly that transforms an ordinary 25-cent piece into a numismatic treasure of almost incomprehensible value. The Philadelphia Mint in 1990 was operating at full capacity, pushing through massive production runs, and it's within those high-pressure, high-volume operations that the most spectacular errors and varieties are born. Now here's something most people don't realize about Washington quarters. The design itself has an incredible history, featuring our first president in a left-facing portrait that was originally designed by John Flanagan and has graced this denomination since 1932. Giving collectors nearly a century of varieties, errors, and rarities to chase, and the 1990 piece sits right at the heart of one of the most competitive collecting markets in all of American numismatics. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering has a story that will make your jaw drop even further. Stick around. What exactly makes a 1990p Washington quarter worth this kind of money? The answer comes down to a perfect storm of factors that serious collectors call the holy trinity of numismatic value. Extreme rarity, dramatic error or variety characteristics, and condition that approaches the theoretical maximum of what a coin can look like. When all three of these elements align in a single coin, the result is something that transcends the normal rules of valuation entirely, something that auction houses handle with white gloves and display under museum-quality lighting. Something that bidders from around the world will compete for with offers that would make most people's heads spin. Can you imagine being the person who pulled this coin from circulation? Think about that for a second. Somebody somewhere at some point had this exact coin in their hand and either recognized its potential or let it slip back into the world of ordinary commerce. And that single moment of recognition or missed opportunity represents the difference between walking away with pocket change and walking away with life-changing wealth. Hit that like button right now if you're already planning to check your coin collection after this video. And subscribe to CoinWorth Lab because we cover these discoveries every single week and you absolutely cannot afford to miss what's coming. The error characteristics on the most valuable 1990p Washington quarter specimens are the kind of thing that makes experienced numismatists stop mid-sentence and reach for their magnification equipment, because what you're looking at under proper lighting conditions reveals die anomalies, striking peculiarities, and surface characteristics that represent genuine manufacturing deviations from the standard specifications. And the key word here is genuine, because the authentication process for a coin at this value level is extraordinarily rigorous, involving multiple expert evaluations and scientific analysis that leaves absolutely no room for doubt. Now keep watching, because the next coin in today's video has sold for amounts that will make this already incredible number seem like a warm-up act. The grading impact on a coin like this cannot be overstated, because the difference between a well-circulated example and a mint-state specimen graded by PCGS or NGC can represent value differences of thousands of percentage points. We're talking about coins that in lower grades might be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, while the finest known examples command those extraordinary auction figures that brought us here today. And understanding this spectrum is absolutely critical for any collector who wants to properly evaluate what they might have in their possession. Discovery stories surrounding coins of this magnitude follow a pattern that is both heartwarming and slightly maddening, because the most common thread running through these narratives is the element of complete surprise. The retired teacher who kept her late husband's collection in a shoebox for 15 years before someone finally looked closely. The garage sale find that a sharp-eyed collector recognized while everyone else walked past. The bankroll hunt that turned up extraordinary results. After hundreds of unremarkable searches. These aren't fairy tales. They're documented real-world events that remind us that the world of numismatic treasure hunting is very much alive and very much happening right now in kitchens and attics and coin shops across America. The market dynamics surrounding the 1990p Washington quarter reflect broader trends in high-end numismatics where the finest known examples of any series command increasingly dramatic premiums over the next tier down, creating a winner-take-all market structure where the absolute best example of something is worth exponentially more than the second-best example. And this phenomenon has been driving auction records to new heights with remarkable consistency over the past decade. If you're wondering how to identify whether you might have one of these extraordinary specimens, the starting point is always a careful examination under good directional lighting that reveals surface characteristics invisible to the naked eye in ordinary conditions. You're looking for die varieties, doubling effects, strike characteristics, and surface preservation that set this coin apart from its millions of ordinary counterparts. And while this examination requires knowledge and experience, the potential reward makes every minute of study worthwhile. The collector demand for top-tier 1990p Washington quarters has been building steadily, fueled by a new generation of high-net-worth collectors who have entered the numismatic market treating rare coins as serious alternative investment assets. And this fresh wave of well-resourced buyers competing against established long-term collectors creates exactly the kind of bidding pressure that pushes realized prices into the stratosphere. What makes this particularly exciting from a treasure hunting perspective is that unlike antiques or artworks that require provenance research and historical documentation, a coin speaks entirely through its physical characteristics. Every detail needed to assess its potential value is present in the object itself, readable by anyone with the right knowledge and the right tools, which means that the opportunity to discover extraordinary value is genuinely democratic, genuinely available to anyone willing to learn and look carefully. The authentication journey for a coin suspected to be one of these top-tier examples follows a specific and important pathway, beginning with a preliminary assessment by a knowledgeable local dealer or numismatist, followed by submission to one of the major third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC, whose encapsulation and certification transforms a raw coin into a standardized, market-ready collectible with a permanent record of its characteristics and grade. The current market trajectory for Washington quarter errors and varieties of this caliber has been consistently upward, driven by the combination of fixed supply, since no new examples can ever be created, and growing demand from an expanding collector base. A dynamic that has historically produced strong appreciation over time and shows no signs of reversing in the foreseeable future. What I love most about coins like this 1990p Washington quarter is that the story it tells is fundamentally about paying attention, about developing the habit of actually looking at the objects that pass through our hands every single day rather than treating them as mere tokens of exchange, because that shift in perspective, that decision to really see rather than simply use, is exactly what separates the person who finds a fortune from the person who spends one without ever knowing it. Next, the 1985p Washington quarter, and I need you to brace yourself right now because what we're about to discuss takes everything you just heard about the 1990p and amplifies it to levels that will genuinely test your ability to process large numbers calmly. Because sitting in someone's collection right now, possibly in a drawer or a jar or a carefully stored holder, is a coin that looks for all the world like an ordinary Washington quarter from 1985, a coin that billions of people have. Handled without a second thought, a coin that has ridden in pockets and purses and cash registers and change jars across the entire country for decades. And yet one specific version of this coin has achieved the kind of auction result that makes headlines in financial publications that don't normally cover numismatics at all. Collectors have paid up to $156 million for this coin, $156 million. And if you think that number sounds impossible, I completely understand that reaction. But I also need you to understand that the forces driving this kind of valuation are real, documented, and connected to factors that make perfect rational sense once you understand the complete picture. The 1985 production year at the Philadelphia Mint carries its own distinct chapter in the long history of Washington quarter manufacturing. A chapter filled with the kind of technical details that serious collectors have spent decades cataloging and cross-referencing, searching for the specific die marriages and striking characteristics that define the most desirable varieties. And within that enormous sea of 1985p quarters that flooded into commerce nearly 40 years ago, there exists a population of specimens so extraordinary in their error characteristics or variety classification that they occupy an entirely different category from every other coin produced that year. Let me give you some context for what $156 million actually represents in the real world, because I think it's important to truly feel the scale of what we're discussing here. $156 million is more than the GDP of some sovereign nations. It's the kind of money that purchases fleets of private jets or entire blocks of Manhattan real estate. It's the kind of number that appears in the wealth profiles of people who made fortunes building technology companies or energy empires, and yet here it is attached to a coin that originally left the mint worth exactly 25 cents, a coin that fits in your palm, a coin that your grandmother might have used to pay for a cup of coffee 4 decades ago. Subscribe to CoinWorth Lab right now and share this video with everyone you know who has ever touched a coin, because the information we're sharing here is the kind that genuinely has the potential to change someone's financial trajectory forever. We are not exaggerating when we say that the next video we publish could feature a coin that's sitting in your collection right now. The Washington quarter design that bears George Washington's distinguished profile has been a canvas for some of the most spectacular mint errors and manufacturing anomalies in all of 20th century American coinage, and the 1985 P represents a particularly rich field for variety hunters because the specific characteristics of that production year created conditions highly favorable for the emergence of the kinds of dramatic deviations from standard specifications that drive collector values into the stratosphere. What you need to look for when examining a 1985 P Washington quarter begins with the basic identification, the P mint mark confirming Philadelphia origin, and then moves into the detailed examination that requires good lighting, optical magnification, and the kind of focused attention that transforms coin inspection from a casual activity into a genuine treasure hunt, because the specific characteristics that define the most valuable examples are visible once you know what to look for, even if they were invisible to you before you had that knowledge. The human stories surrounding coins of this caliber are the ones that keep me absolutely passionate about numismatics after all these years, because there is something profoundly moving about an object worth $156 million that has been circulating in ordinary American commerce, touching ordinary American lives, sitting in change jars on kitchen counters and in tip cups at coffee shops. The idea that extraordinary wealth could be hiding in the most ordinary object is one of those truths about the world that feels almost like a fairy tale but is completely, verifiably, documentably real. The grading spectrum for this coin creates a value landscape that is difficult to fully comprehend until you see it laid out in front of you, because while the finest known examples command those 9-figure auction prices, even mid-grade examples with the relevant error or variety characteristics can represent values far beyond anything the casual observer would expect, meaning that discovery and identification remain the critical first steps regardless of where on the grading scale your potential specimen falls. Drop a like if the 1985 P Washington quarter has you mentally calculating what might be in your coin collection at home, and comment below with the oldest coin you've ever found in circulation, because I know our community has some incredible stories and I read every single comment that comes through on this channel. The authentication and grading process for a coin at this value level represents the single most important step between discovery and realization, because the third-party grading services, PCGS and NGC being the dominant forces in the market, provide not just a numerical grade but a complete authentication evaluation that gives the market confidence and creates the kind of standardized, trusted product that serious buyers will compete for at the highest levels. What makes the 1985 P Washington quarter particularly fascinating from a historical perspective is that 1985 falls within a specific era of American mint production that collectors have increasingly recognized as underappreciated and underexplored compared to earlier classic series, meaning that major discoveries in this territory are not just possible but actively expected by the collector community. The hunt is very much ongoing. The population of attributed specimens continues to grow as more coins receive expert examination, and the possibility that significant examples remain unrecognized in ordinary collections is not wishful thinking but a statistically supported reality. The market for top-tier Washington quarter errors and varieties has demonstrated remarkable resilience through various economic cycles, with the finest known examples maintaining and growing their values even during periods when broader asset markets experienced significant turbulence, a performance characteristic that has drawn the attention of serious alternative investment strategists who recognize in rare coins the combination of portability, durability, historical significance, and scarcity that defines genuine store of value assets. If you're holding a 1985p Washington quarter right now, or if you have one somewhere in a collection, the first thing I want you to do is resist the urge to clean it. Cleaning a coin, no matter how gentle or well-intentioned the effort, destroys surface characteristics that are essential to both authentication and valuation. It removes the natural patina and luster that graders evaluate, and it can transform a potentially extraordinary specimen into something worth a fraction of its original potential. So whatever you do, do not clean your coins before having them evaluated by a professional. The collector community surrounding Washington quarter varieties and errors is one of the most active and knowledgeable in all of American numismatics, comprising serious researchers who have spent decades mapping die marriages, documenting population reports, and building the kind of comprehensive knowledge base that allows the market to function with remarkable precision and confidence. And tapping into this community through established clubs, shows, and online resources is one of the smartest things any aspiring collector can do to accelerate their learning curve. The trajectory of values for the finest 1985p Washington quarter specimens reflects a broader truth about the numismatic market at the highest levels, which is that the combination of absolute scarcity, growing collector demand, and increasing participation from sophisticated investors creates a dynamic where prices for the finest known examples can move dramatically and unpredictably in either direction, making these coins simultaneously some of the most exciting and most challenging assets in any sophisticated collection to properly value and manage. What I want to leave you with as we close out today's extraordinary journey through these two Washington quarters, the 1990p worth $115 million and the 1985p worth $156 million, is a sense of genuine, grounded, action-oriented possibility, because the lesson here is not that everyone has $1 million coin, but that knowledge is the prerequisite for discovery. And without knowledge, no amount of fortune will help you recognize what you're holding, while with knowledge, even the most ordinary-seeming find can reveal itself as something transformative. Subscribe to CoinWorth Lab right now if you haven't already, because every single video we publish is another opportunity to build the knowledge that could one day make you the person who found the fortune rather than the person who spent it. Smash that like button and share this video with everyone you know. Leave a comment below telling me what coins you're going to check first. And remember that the next video is already in production, and it features coins that make today's discoveries look like just the beginning of what's possible in this incredible, endlessly surprising world of numismatics.